underway at Wiley, where they are helping readers move beyond the constraints of the traditional PDF towards fruitful immersion in connected content. She will particularly focus on their evolving the HTML presentation of scholarly articles and on how Wiley is integrating ReadCube capabilities to enhance reader experience and interactivity. With that, I'll hand over the presentation to Marlowe Harris.
Great, thank you very much, Peter. Okay, just to give another brief rundown of the topics I'm going to cover today. I'm going to talk about some of the efforts that Wiley is undertaking to engage users with journal content and to move essentially beyond the constraints of the traditional PDF. So those three things I'm going to cover are what we call the Anywhere article, which is our name for the enhanced HTML version of our article. Then I'm going to talk about ReadCube Connect, which is a third-party integration with ReadCube, which is a technology company that enhances PDFs. And then I'm going to talk briefly about what we're doing with mobile apps. So I want to start a bit with a bit of background about how and when we realized that we actually had a problem engaging users on the Wiley Online Library, which is our content delivery platform. It was a few years ago. It was 2011, 2012, and we were carrying out some user research for some HTML features that we were designing for chemists on the journal article. So we were doing qualitative research, doing what we normally do, asking researchers to carry out their normal activities throughout their research workflows and behave as they normally would. But we couldn't get them to actually look at the HTML version of the article. We couldn't get them to look at the features that we were trying to test because all they wanted to do was just, as per their normal behavior, go grab the PDF and then carry on searching for answers to the rest of their research questions. So this really shouldn't have been a surprise to us. Traditional usage statistics, I think most people know, have always clearly shown an inclination towards the PDF over the HTML. But we never really paid that much attention to the distinction between the HTML and PDF usage. We just kind of accepted it. But we realized here that we really needed to dig deeper into why people weren't looking at the because what we realized with this activity is that if users aren't engaged with the HTML, number one, we can't add value to content using the tools that the internet offers, such as data linking, semantic enrichment, all of that cool stuff that we can do on the quote-unquote connected web. And we also can improve the mobile experiences, which is obviously, even back then, was becoming more and more of an important part of the researcher's workflow. So we asked ourselves, how can we essentially rival and replace the PDF? What can we do to make the HTML an attractive alternative to the PDF to engage users and give them the opportunity to take advantage of that content? So we started with some desk research, which essentially boiled down to a somewhat popular question on the Quora question and answer platform, where a person posted the question, why do scientists tend to prefer PDF documents over HTML when reading scientific journals? And the majority of the answers were, we need less clutter on HTML. And that was the answer that we really kind of focused on and decided was a primary reason why users just didn't care about the HTML. So then we carried on to do our normal user research. So we created a prototype that we thought addressed that clutter problem. Some usability testing around the world on that prototype, and the users all agreed, yes, we like less clutter. We do like this version of the HTML because it looks more like the PDF. So what we came up with was the Anywhere article, which focused on three things: readability, functionality, and mobility. And we thought all of these things just kind of addressed what we had heard from users about what they didn't like about the HTML. So I'm just going to very quickly go into a live example, which is always a bit of a risk, on the web, but I'm going to do it and just walk you through those features that highlight the readability, functionality, and mobility. So this is our old version of the article. As you can see, it has everything that people complained about. There's a lot of clutter. The font is very small thumbnails. It's not hard to understand why people didn't really enjoy the experience of reading this. So I'm going to go to what we call the enhanced version of the HTML, which at this point for most of our journals is still what we're calling in beta, so many users still have to choose to go to that version, which I'll come back and talk to a bit more. So this is the new version. You can see it's much cleaner. It's what we believe, again, looks like the PDF in that it doesn't have the clutter. It's very clean. The font size is much more readable. The figures are much larger. They're much more, core to the content of the article. Overall, everything's just much more readable in terms of just an easy viewing experience. Functionality was the second goal we were trying to meet, and what that was about focusing on was about making sure that all the functionality that HTML offers is there and available, but not intrusive on the page, so that users can get to information when they need it. So at the top of the page, we have all of the most important information, which is the information that all of that testing users told us these are the most important things. Authors, obviously, things like DOI. But there's a lot more information easily available if you need it, such as author information, something like you've got the first published date here, but if you need to see the full publication history, you can pull that up. If you need to export the citation, you can do it right from the top there. Moving back to the figure integration, you've got the large figure here, but you can also open it up and navigate through all of the figures in the article without losing your place in the article, and you can go to the easily go back to the article once I click out of this. There we go. So we thought that is the functionality aspect of the article, and the third bit was very much about the mobility. So what that means is that the page is responsive to the size of the browser being viewed on, which I'm not sure I can do on the webinar, but the page will be responsive to the device browser. So those were the things that we really focused on with the article. And we got a lot of qualitative feedback. We also incorporated a tool called User Voice, where users can go and leave some feedback. With qualitative results, we got a lot of very positive feedback from users. Most of the feedback is very positive. People like it. You can see that users can vote there on the screen to agree with others. Some people even liked it to a bit of a profane degree, as you can see there. So we get a lot of positive feedback. We get a lot of constructive feedback, so things that aren't working well for users. We get that feedback really quickly and can decide how to prioritize changes. We, of course, get some negative feedback. Some users just don't like it. And we get a lot of grounding feedback, and by that I mean the fact of the matter is that a lot of users really just still want the PDF. So the qualitative results have been great. What about the quantitative results? Are users actually engaging with this article more than the traditional HTML? And we do have some data. It's our data at this point is still fairly limited because, as I mentioned before, for most of the content, users have to choose to go there. So, and most of them, of course, don't. But we do have a number of high-profile journals where the enhanced HTML has actually replaced that old version, so we can make direct comparisons between how users are behaving with the Anywhere article versus the traditional article. So our analytics so far, thankfully, say yes, users are engaging more with the Anywhere article. So compared to the equivalent, to any equivalent period last year, visits containing a full text access grew from 50% to 54%, which is a fairly big jump. And interestingly, the HTML to PDF ratio has grown from 30.1% to 38.3% once a journal migrated to the Annual article version. So that's obviously a very key metric because, as I was saying before, traditionally most accesses are going to the PDF. So to see a very clear increase in the HTML proportion shows that we're actually doing what we wanted to do, which is getting people to engage. And we do expect to have more reliable and interesting insights early next year when we have a larger sample set of journals that have a new article as their main article view, and as our analytics start to become a bit more mature. So, so yes, we're very pleased in that we seem to be succeeding with kind of luring users away from the flat PDF to the more interactive, engaging HTML. But at the same time, kind of going back to a bit of feedback I showed before, where it clearly stated that some users just plain want the PDF, we started to rethink our views on that and started to revisit our inclination that we really needed to rival the PDF, because the fact is the PDF actually has a lot of benefits beyond what the HTML can offer. For example, familiar and consistent across platforms. You know, a PDF published by publisher A will look the same as a PDF published by publisher B, so it's very predictable. PDFs can be saved and archived offline, very important. Indexing sites often link to PDFs. Legacy content, you know, things published before 1996 or so, usually only available in PDF if there hasn't been an investment to convert to HTML. So we started to just really think about the fact maybe we need to do something with the PDF. So while making the HTML as readable as the PDF, can we also somehow make the PDF as connected to the internet and functional as the HTML? And the answer was yes. We started to talk to and partner with a company called ReadCube, which is a digital science company. And one of their offerings is a product called ReadCube Connect, which essentially takes the functional capabilities of HTML and applies those, kind of overlays them onto the traditional PDF format, creating an HTML5 document that just gives a lot more depth to that previously flat experience of the PDF. And it can be saved, it can be read online and saved offline. And I just have a screenshot here that shows most of the advantages that it brings, which mirrors very, very much what we were doing with Anywhere article. So it has the equivalent of a figure viewer where you can browse through all the figures in the article. It includes social altmetrics. It includes links to references. You can click on an author name and run a search to get results of other articles by the same authors. You can view the supporting information that might be associated with the article. You can view related articles. And you can, of course, also go to the original version of the PDF. So, like I was saying, it really just manages to do all of the same things that the HTML capabilities bring and brings it right onto the PDF. So are users engaging more with the enhanced PDF than the traditional PDF? So far, again, yes. The ReadCube capabilities are, we're finding, delivering more PDF usages per visit and more visits per user. And according to ReadCube, about 2/3 of readers consume the PDF in browser. What that implies is that users are actually not just downloading the PDF and sticking it on their computer and leaving, they're actually engaging with it online. I am getting a bit close to time, so I'm going to speed up here and just really quickly run through something else that we're doing for another kind of role that we believe our users have. When we talk about researchers and enhancing their experience and trying to engage them, we're talking about users who are on a discovery path to find an answer. They're looking for answers to specific questions. They're most likely online rather than offline, and that's the role that the annual article and ReadCube PDF kind of addresses and engages with. When we refer to readers, we're talking about society members and authors who have more of a relationship with a journal, so they're more likely to want to browse rather than search and want to read articles offline as well as online. And we have mobile apps that meet those needs as well. And again, it's just another way to engage with a reader that has a bit of a different mindset than a researcher. So these are targeted to loyal and engaged readers. It has a lot of the same functionality that Annual Article does in terms of design, but again, is available offline and more conducive to browsing. And we are managing to, we think, again, engage readers this way. The users who are using apps, as opposed to just using the mobile version of Wiley Online Library, are actually viewing more full text and returning more often. And just to wrap up, just a kind of reminder, I suppose, of the obvious of why engagement matters. We believe that if users aren't engaging with the content on our platform, then they're more likely to be finding the same content elsewhere, either via green OA or even worse, just kind of stolen content that's being made available on the web. And we're losing that readership if we can't find a way to really engage them and give them a reason to come back and stay on our platform. And that is what I have for today.
Well, thank you very much, Marlowe. That was outstanding, and I'm really glad that you mentioned the legacy content as well. We'll have questions for you later, and a reminder to everyone listening to start gathering those questions that you might have for our speakers for the end of the session. Now it's my pleasure to introduce our second speaker for today. Jonathan Agben-Yega is the Business Development Manager at the International Union of Crystallography. Jonathan began his publishing career as a book author during his PhD. Following a postdoctoral position, Jonathan moved into the publishing industry and has worked at Wiley, the FT, and more recently Elsevier as editor-in-chief and publisher of Materials Today magazine. Jonathan is responsible for driving new business practices at the ICR, and today Jonathan will be discussing some of IUCR's latest latest engagement strategies. Specifically, Jonathan will focus on their use of the new platform Kudos, which helps authors improve both the visibility of their published work as well as the awareness of the central message of their work in the author's own words, as Jonathan will now explain. Jonathan?
Okay, thank you very much, Peter, for that kind introduction. My presentation is entitled Evolving Engagement Strategies in Kudos. It will look at some of the engagement marketing activities taking place at the International Union of Crystallography, or IUCR, and an engagement project we're involved in with a third-party company called Kudos. So, in the next 10 to 15 minutes, I will tell you a little bit about the International Union of Crystallography and our community, a Kudos experiment, some engagement activities taking place at the IUCR, One or two Kudos case studies, and then I'll wrap up with some conclusions. So, who we are. We're a small not-for-profit scientific union established in 1948 to support the global crystallographic community in sharing results, promoting best practice in the discipline, providing educational resources, and inspiring the next generation of crystallographer. Since our launch, like many sciences, crystallography continues to evolve, and as such, so has the union. We strive to give our authors the best possible service, so we decided to embark on a new experiment with a new startup company called Kudos. Authors are the best people to explain their work, and at the center of the most appropriate networks for sharing that work. Yet it is often difficult for the authors to engage in efforts to promote their work. There are many reasons for this. Chief amongst them is that the authors do not realize how effective and simple their efforts can be, and are usually put off by a myriad of different approaches from multiple publishers. Kudos has attempted to address this with a standard toolkit for explaining and sharing research. But before I go to talk a little bit more about Kudos and the opportunities it provides, I thought I might share one or two other projects that we've been involved in at the Union. And chief amongst these is the launch of our new journal website for our portfolio of journals. To accommodate new hardware devices and to meet the desire for more information about scientific publications, the IUCR Journals website has been given a fresh new livery and enhanced functionality. The new design is clean, bright, adaptable to different screen sizes. Each journal homepage highlights a number of recent articles of particular interest or significance. In many cases, these highlighted articles have accompanying commentaries establishing their importance, either in featured articles on the general IUCR homepage or as commissioned pieces in the journals themselves. Sidebars allow for a variety of content related to the specific focus of each journal. For example, Acta Crystallographica Section B, one of our journals, in Material Sciences, has a sidebar link to a gallery of amazing visualizations in incommensurate modulated structures published in the journal. These use JS-Mol to produce animations in time that correspond to lattice distortions in space. The Journal of Synchrotron Radiation focuses on beamline papers in a sidebar, while other journals provide links to special or virtual issues, or provide access to article listings according to keywords categorized by the journal scope. The 3D view visualization interface has been improved and provides a common interface for three-dimensional interactive images of all classes of structure: biological macromolecules, inorganics, small molecules, metal organic complexes. For small structures, there are also tools to view and predict powder profiles and to perform similarity searches amongst other structures published in IUCR journals. An especially useful feature that we can see now on the screen shows the number of citations as recorded by a number of monitoring services, such as Altmetrics and the Web of Science. The page also features a detailed interactive graph of all the article downloads in both PDF and HTML formats from the IUCR Journal server. Authors are being driven by both their funders and universities to produce the most impact in their papers. We want to help facilitate this need, and with article level metrics, highlighted papers, commentaries, and similar. We have many requests from authors now to provide information on how successful their paper is performing. What is its impact in the community? We hope our metrics page and perhaps new features we might develop and add to this page will help. In the early days, we thought the audience might actually find the article level metrics to judge the impact of an article the most use. But what we actually suspect, we're finding our authors are using this information, as I mentioned earlier, in more of an impactful way to understand just how important their science is. So we kept asking ourselves, is there something that we're missing? Is there something that the publisher could perhaps facilitate within the researcher's workflow? And of course, there is. Kudos was established to help scientists expand the awareness of their research. In a survey addressed to researchers, Kudos asked, can more be done to increase the visibility, usage, and impact of your work? Of 4,000 researchers questioned, 84% of them said yes. Kudos then asked who should be responsible for doing the work. 75% of the researchers' questions said that they would use the tools to increase publication performance. In the initial pilot, authors using the Kudos sharing tools saw 19% higher downloads for their published work. The platform is simple and intuitive. It guides the author through a series of steps. The first step, to explain your work. What is the work about? Why is it important? The next stage is to enrich your work with links to related content. This could be anything from database material through to video or book content. The final stage is to actually share the work with your social network, web pages and contacts. And whilst all of this activity is taking place, both the author and publisher can track the performance of their work through a taskbar and metrics page, which can help the author measure the most effective route to promote his or her work. To drive engagement still further in the community, as publisher, we use a Kudos widget to display within our own site the metadata and resources that authors add to Kudos themselves. Kudos has its very own metrics page as well, which provides details on full text downloads, abstract views, both of which are taken from a feed provided by the publisher. Share referrals, which are of the number of visits to the author's publication page on the Kudos website, generated through email and social media activity. And finally, a Kudos metric on views, which are the total number of visits to the author's publication page on the Kudos site. Once an author has claimed his or her work, they are presented with a well-defined workflow to help in creating the lay summary, enriching the article and sharing in their community. Tools are presented to the researcher at each stage to facilitate the process and make it as simple and as quick to perform as possible. Throughout the life cycle of the work, hints and tips are provided to enable researchers to keep the buzz alive around their work. So, observations to date have been encouraging. We have seen good levels of registration, with similarly good numbers claiming papers. Where we still see some significant room for growth is in the category of actually explaining your work. Finally, those authors who have claimed and written lay summaries, we see good levels of sharing. So, how are people actually reacting to this? In a series of case studies to really round off my presentation, our first case study shows a researcher based at Imperial College, London, who reached out to us with a request to promote her work and link it to a commercial product that resulted from the publication of her research. Research work that led to a patented product which allows for automated protein crystallization trials. Kudos allowed Naomi to marry both the research and commercial in engaging with the community, and further went to create the opportunity for her to explain her work and highlight the significance of her commercial product to an audience that might not be fully up to speed in the field. Following the success of Naomi's case study, we have since had 2 further requests from authors in similar positions wishing to achieve the same result. My second case study is our own, and our wish to engage with related communities not just interested in crystallography, but anybody interested in structure determination. The platform allows for us to work alongside authors of papers we identify as being game-changing papers and papers that we feel a significant teaching element to them. Anthony Williams is a scientist at the National Center of Computational Toxicology at the Environmental Protection Agency. He is also one of the founders of ChemSpider, which is a free chemical structures database which provides fast text and structure search access to 35 million structures from hundreds of data sources. He is also VP Strategic Development at the Royal Society of Chemistry. Anthony is a super user of the platform, reaching out to an even wider audience interested in science. Many publishers contacted a number of its own most active authors to become super users of the platform. These are the comments of just one of them. A platform contributed to by scientists, for scientists, and interested readers. So we are still learning about the positive aspects of Kudos and the tools that it can empower our readers and authors with. Initial observations have been good, and we continue to be encouraged by just how people are engaging with the tool. We've still got a lot of work to do in terms of encouraging our authors to write lay summaries, to share the material, and then to just continually enriching the content and keeping that content alive. We all hope that this is just the first in a number of engagement opportunities for us, and in working with such a close community as the crystallographic community, we can encourage more researchers, authors to come on board. So with that, I'd just like to thank Will Russell at the Royal Society of Chemistry for helping in this presentation, and also to Kudos for giving me the opportunity to speak here today. Thank you.
Peter, I think you might have your phone muted.
There, can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you, Peter.
Okay, back in action. I apologize for that, everyone. Okay, so it's my pleasure now, first to thank Jonathan for that presentation, and then to introduce Scott Beatty. Scott Beatty is co-founder and chief content officer of Trajectory Incorporated. Scott has held positions in electronic publishing and data companies focusing on product development, channel development, marketing, software, engineering, and sales. Prior to Trajectory, he was the founder of Tridia Labs, as well as a partner in and vice president of Information Please, and co-founded the company ProCD. Scott will provide an overview of Trajectory's natural language processing, or NLP, for polyglot semantic enrichment of content media, in a discussion of Trajectory's intelligent network, global network, for connecting international producers of content to libraries, schools, retailers, and new distribution and discovery channels around the world. With that, I'll let Scott take it away.
Scott, we're having a problem with your audio as well now. Folks, it'll be just a moment while we get Scott back online here.
Still not coming through.
And there you are, Scott. We have you now.
Scott, are you back by the microphone? Yeah, I think we're going to, Jennifer and Gerald will work with Scott for a second to get him back online. I'll ask a quick question, if I could, to Jonathan. Jonathan?
Actually, I'm sorry, Scott is back and he's unmuting right now.
Yeah, hey, I apologize, everyone. Thanks
Super.
a lot.
Take it away, Scott.
Hey, thanks, Peter. This is why I'm probably not going to use a live web demo as Marlowe did. Obviously, I've got a few not that brave. So anyways, Trajectory, we're a platform company that does we sort of have two main philosophies. One is that when we work with our publishing partners, we believe that they should be available everywhere. And then when they are available, they should be discoverable. So Trajectory has set up what we think is the largest global network for publishers to reach any digital sales channel in the world, whether it be libraries, mobile, retail, alternative channels like subscription channels, academic libraries, public libraries, and then conversely, we also work with some of those channels who are looking for new types of content. You know, for instance, we placed Russian ebooks into libraries into China. We've placed Swedish ebooks into sales channels into North America. And again, our distribution is it's pretty straightforward. A publishing partner would submit to us their ebook. We then convert that into whatever is required by the global supply chain. There's 16 different formats. We're reaching over 300 different possible points of distribution. And then that represents about 230,000 endpoints globally. And then I think one of the main things that we do quite differently is that we run everything through our natural language processing and semantic analysis engine, which we've devised and built for English language, Mandarin language, and German language. Then we deliver those, of course, those books and the metadata to the global supply chain, and then we consolidate all the reporting on the back end for our publishing partners. And we work on Trajectory works on a shared revenue model, so there's really no cost to our publishing partners. I'll give you a quick case study on how we're helping with discoverability and or availability globally. We've been pioneering new sales channels into China, and we've built, I think, one of the interesting networks for Western publishers to reach China. And I think this is a really interesting opportunity for academic presses. Then on the export side, again, since we're a network, we're also working with publishing partners in the education space, like People's Education Press. We're also working with Ennui Publishing Group, Guangxi University Science and Technology, and then we're able to export those titles globally. And then I'd like to get into a bit here now about our natural language processing, because this was really the impetus. You know, once we had built the distribution network, we realized that there was much more opportunities available for publishing partners to take advantage of the content. So we've created a series of deep learning algorithms that we're applying to the text within any book or journal that we're processing. And our goals are really to increase discoverability of that book through library and retail channels. We're also hopefully leading to new interpretations of that book. And then we're also using that as a basis for machine learning by comparing that particular volume against every other book or journal or article within our system. And the way the process works is we're looking at every word, sentence, paragraph, and chapter within the book. We're identifying the base forms of speech. We're identifying every word. We're identifying people as people, places as places, things as things and brands as brands. And we're finding this as a really quite interesting undertaking. Then we also describe the structure of the sentences in terms of phrases and word dependencies. And then we're really looking a lot at co-occurrence and frequency. And then for academic or journal or nonfiction content, the entity extraction we think is really, really important. Here are some of the vectors that we are using to characterize a particular a book. Some of these are really germane to fiction or nonfiction, and then others are much more interesting for academic presses. Things like keywords, entity extraction, number of unique words, subject, of course, is important, etc. The way that our engine works, it's quite simple. We ingest the book into our system. We then use, we're categorizing and populating with all available book data. We're running an analytics engine to generate key statistics from that particular book. And the model then is publishing sort of a characteristic profile or a DNA, if you will, of that book. Then we're using a variety of search algorithms within our database to then look at books that have a similarity or specific attributes. So for academic presses and research, I think this is really important because from a pure content level, you're able to then find interesting books and articles that relate specifically to that piece of research. We're doing these, and then once we have the NLP process or the book process, we're doing a lot of translation into localized languages of keywords within Spanish, German, Chinese, and English, and we'll be looking at additional languages as well. And we're delivering this enriched metadata to sort of downstream to our global distribution partners. The data is available to our partners and to the global supply chain as either a JSON file, XML, or an RDF formatted data. And then here's an example of what the trajectory index is and the way that some of the data could be presented. We're looking at complexity level. We're looking at people as people, places as places, brands as brands, and other types of interesting information. Then I think one of the key things, of course, we're doing is to make that discoverable into our foreign markets. We're doing automatic translation of books into Chinese. Certainly around the top level key entities, and then the supply chain in those localized countries are utilizing that translated data to find different words. We're doing, of course, interesting tag clouds and data visualizations for that. Again, we're back into Chinese, and then we also have the engine is built into Mandarin. So we're able to now start to compare books and data from one language into another language. And we've got this live in different sales channels around the country and around the world. And then I think our finest work product is around our recommendations. This is when we're able to take and model a particular work and then find the closest matching books and information to that particular article or into different, around certain different content. So what I think one interesting thing that we're starting to do with this is we're looking at ways to tie the base level content or the base level modeling around a particular volume back into a university's information repository. So we can take some of the catalog from an academic or university press and then tie that into research within the information repository. And so that's really quite simple by modeling every single word, sentence, paragraph, and chapter within that book. And that is kind of what we do. I'm running out of time here, so I'm going to flip this back to Jennifer so that we can get into some more questions and answers.
Can you hear me, Jennifer? Can you hear me now? Yes, all right. Great. If the speakers can unmute themselves, I'll have a couple questions for you to start things off, but I hope people listening will have questions for them as well. First one directed to Jonathan. With your use with Kudos, you mentioned a great deal that this could be used in content marketing strategies. I'll use that term.
Right.
To get authors out into social media. Now, do the authors need to have a social media presence themselves to use the Kudos system?
They do, Peter, yes. So the authors will be guided through a process of, signing up, with Twitter, Facebook, any other social media channels where they feel, their communities, are actually revolving around. And, from there, the Kudos platform will allow you to link into those accounts, so you can just go into the Kudos platform and then start uploading messages that you can direct towards Twitter, Facebook, Pinterest, all of the different types of social media that are out there, or just quite simply sharing it with your colleagues via email.
Well, that's super, and that is driving increased traffic, you see, in your usage.
It is, yes. So we've seen an increase of somewhere between 10 and 15%, in sharing. Of the messages that we send, and basically what our authors are doing are just writing a lay summary, about the research work. And you can imagine in crystallography, it can be quite technical. So when they do, just write it into a 1-2 line, introductory type, piece that is shared particularly well on Twitter, I would say. The majority of our community, we're seeing being more active on the Twitter sphere, almost, if you can call it that. We're using Facebook more for our what I would say are charitable side of the business. So we do a lot of outreach, we do a lot of taking crystallography, taking teaching opportunities to institutions that may not have a presence in this particular field, or may not have the technology to be able to function in this field. So a lot of what we do there goes to Facebook particularly well, but for the more technical content, for the more research paper-led engagement, we're seeing Twitter as being a really successful platform for us.
Thank you so much. Then I have another question, but I think question for Scott. You mentioned books a lot. Do you also work with academic journals delivering their content to China? Scott, I don't think we can hear you right now. If you can unmute yourself again. While Scott is the wonders of live academic scholarship. So while Scott's unmuting, I'm going to ask, turn a question to Marlowe instead. Marlowe, if you are unmuted and ready to go, my question for you is with the HTML, with ReadQ, did it figure in, you talked about discovery, did it figure into your search engine optimization strategy? And did you find that discovery on the web was impacted by these experiments as well?
Yeah. Can you hear me, first of all?
Yes, we can. Great.
Yeah, we actually we put a lot of effort into ensuring that our ReQube's integration with our platform didn't impact existing search rankings. We spoke quite a bit with Google to make sure that they could continue to crawl the original PDF, which is what they needed in order to maintain those rankings. So the most discovery from outside of the Wiley Online Library platform is still to the traditional PDFs. Google is kind of slowly starting to pick up some of the enhanced PDF URLs, but again, we put a lot of effort into making sure that the way that we coded that integration didn't harm our search engine rankings, and it actually took quite a few discussions to make sure that there weren't any surprises about what we were doing with the various bits of JavaScript and stuff like that. So
terrific. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say it was a huge factor in making sure that we didn't break anything with the integration, I'd say.
Great. So, and you don't have data yet on whether it's positively impacted it either, but you think it might?
Yeah, that's hard to say. Don't know yet. We don't have any information to say either way. We're just pretty happy that that it hasn't hurt us.
That's good. Then if Scott is off mute, Scott, can you hear me? Can we hear you?
Yeah, I think we're good, Peter.
We are indeed. Super. So we had two questions for you, and then I'll have a follow-on. One is, do you work with journal content as well, article-level contents yet? And then I'll have a follow-on.
Sure. Yes, we're starting to experiment with that. Basically, we've been more focused right now on books and structured data, as far and with academic presses and university presses. But we've been then working and experimenting with tying back at the article level from information repositories, and then creating a recommendation system back into a university press's sort of main catalog. And then through that work, we're pioneering, I think, a lot of distribution into China on the book side. And then once we have that system sort of up and running, tying in the articles from the IR into an academic presses catalog, then I think we'd be in a good shape to distribute into China on the journal, on the article level.
That's super. Then my follow-on question for you, you talked a lot about translation and discovery in multiple countries and across language barriers. Has the use case of this search engine or this search capability for increasing discovery of potential translations to come? In other words, publishers discovering works to be translated, or scholars discovering works to be translated into different languages.
Yeah, no, we're starting to get a lot of uptick in Germany, where we have the NLP system, the engine, authored in German language, and also in Mandarin within China. We have different sales channels that are taking book content and then integrating those capabilities and that enriched multilingual metadata into those local languages. And then we're like right on the cusp right now of being able to generate, for instance, taking a journal article or a book that's authored in Spanish, and then match that against one that's authored in English, say, and then to compare that and to create recommendations. Then, our system is really good at enriching the metadata, but to do a full translation, you still need rather than at a machine level, I think you really are best served by you working with a translator.
That's super. But at the recommendation level, we could see the books being matched. The publishers could talk to one another and then take it from there, perhaps.
Absolutely. In fact, that's really the main objective of the system, is so that at the publisher level, They can then see, for instance, maybe there's a university press or an academic press that specializes in Chinese history. Then they'll be able to then work with Chinese universities, and without having to sort of match up or read or understand a whole complete volume, they'll be able to do a quick recommendation and see similar books within that catalog to partner with someone based on on their catalog content.
Thank you, Scott. I think that's outstanding for our audience in scholarly communications today. We had another question for Marlowe, speaking to your use of the article, Anywhere article. How much work was involved in getting that ready for that platform? And was it manual? And were the authors tapped to do some of that work, or was it internal?
So it was completely internal. We essentially built that new page completely separately from our existing platform, and we kind of use that as a bit of a diving board towards a whole new, much more flexible architecture, whereby we started to build out our content web service and build a new CMS on top of it. So it did take a while because we were essentially building from the ground up, including some bits of access control. So it probably kind of end to end, we spent a lot of upfront time on the user research, and then by the time we actually started the actual development work, I'd say it was probably about 12 months of full-on work for our development team, including product management and user experience.
Outstanding. So content creation isn't always free.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and to answer the other bit of that question, no, we didn't really, because we were just using the existing content and essentially just building the page on top of that, we were lucky in that we didn't really have to make any adjustments to any content workflow or any of the content markup or anything like that. We just kind of built on what we had already.
Super. Well, I think we've gone a little bit over, but we've used the extra time lost according to soccer rules, international soccer rules for referees, for time stoppages, for audio difficulties. So thank you, everyone, for bearing with us through that. And with that, I'll hand it off to Gerald and Jennifer to wrap us up.
Thank you, Peter, and to all of our panelists as well. And thank you for attending, and we do apologize for the audio bumps. It's hard to watch a presenter have to fight the system, but Scott, we appreciate you not only fighting but coming through on that. Please do take a time today or soon after to respond to the webinar link you will get, and that evaluation that you receive and get back to us will help us continually improve the program, as we have said before. A listing of future SSP events is on the screen now, the most important being the 38th annual meeting. And also, don't forget about our webinar series up and coming for 2016. It's easy to remember, the second Tuesday of March, April, September, and October. And we also want to make sure you don't lose sight or hearing of the Scholarly Kitchen webinar programming. And with that, that not only wraps up our webinar today, but the 2015 series. So enjoy the rest of your day and year, and we'll see you in 2016.